Attention passionate Atlanta, Falcons fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the NFC South and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Atlanta Falcons' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Atlanta Falcons fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your FRINDS and Atlanta, FALCONS. Let's get to the news now, folks. Let's talk about what's shaping up to be one of the most explosive and potentially game-changing rumors of the NFL offseason so far. The buzz around the league is pointing to a blockbuster trade that could send Brian Burns, the dynamic pass rusher from the New York Giants, over to the Atlanta Falcons. And if this deal goes down, it could totally flip the NFC South on its head and set the Falcons up for a serious playoff push that might even extend all the way to the Super Bowl. I know it sounds wild, but let's break down what's happening and why everyone's so excited about this. First off, the Giants are in a bit of a mess right now. Sitting at a 2-10 record with a defense that's just been hemorrhaging points, allowing an average of over 32 points per game, they're clearly in rebuild mode. The franchise has a cap space of around $2 million, but they're also facing some tough decisions with players like Thibodeaux, who's pending a big contract extension. The Giants are in a situation where they need to make some tough calls, especially on defense, which has struggled mightily this year. They're also looking to rebuild their wide receiver and defensive back units, which means shedding some big salaries and perhaps moving on from players who aren't fitting into their long-term plans. Now, here's where the rumors get interesting. The Giants could be eyeing a deal that involves shipping out Brian Burns, a player who's been a bright spot on their defense, in exchange for a second-round pick in the 2026 draft. The Falcons, who are sitting at 4-7 and desperately needing to bolster their pass rush, are seen as prime trade partners. They've been hampered by injuries on their defensive line, with Harrison on IR for 6 weeks and Bowman also sidelined. The addition of Burns could be exactly what they need to take their defense to the next level. Burns, drafted in 2019, has established himself as one of the premier edge rushers in the league. His stats speak for themselves. Over 7 seasons, he's accumulated 60 sacks, 400 pressures, and has a PFF grade hovering around 88.9. This guy is a nightmare for offensive linemen, with a quick first step and relentless motor that makes him a constant threat to quarterbacks. His ability to generate pressure is well documented, and he's a player who can change the complexion of any game with his pass-rushing prowess. Last year, in 2024, he posted 5 sacks, 63 pressures, and maintained a win rate of around 19%, which is pretty impressive considering the level of competition. What makes Burns even more attractive for the Falcons is his knack for creating turnovers. He's got a forced fumble rate of about 3.5% and a yards after catch allowed stat of only 4.2 yards per reception. He's a player who elevates the entire pass rush, and with a more consistent supporting cast, could potentially reach double-digit sacks this season. His presence on the field would dramatically improve Atlanta's pass defense, which has been somewhat inconsistent this year. The Falcons have struggled to generate consistent pressure, especially after losing Harrison to injury. Adding Burns could bump their total sacks from around 35 to over 55, a game-changer in terms of disrupting opponents' offensive rhythm. And let's not forget the ripple effect this would have across the NFC South. The Falcons are already fighting hard to stay in the playoff picture with a 4-7 record, and they're sorely lacking a truly dominant pass rush. Burns' speed and agility, he's a true panther on the edge, would give Atlanta a lethal combo alongside Okoronkwo, who's been solid but needs that extra spark. With Burns, they could project reaching around 22 or more sacks total, which would be a huge boost. It would also elevate their defense from a modest 21.5 points allowed per game to something much more formidable, closer to 17 points, making them a nightmare for offenses in the division. The impact on the Falcons' offense would be equally significant. With a stronger pass rush, opponents would have to double-team Burns, freeing up other players and creating more pressure on rival quarterbacks. This would give Desmond Ridder more time to operate and make smarter throws. His deep accuracy, already pretty promising, could improve as defenses shift their focus. The chemistry with receivers like Drake London and Kyle Pitts would get even better, as defenses would be forced to respect the pass rush more than ever before. Plus, with the added pressure, the Falcons could see a boost in turnovers, More sacks mean more forced fumbles and interceptions, which are crucial in close games. Now, the numbers behind all this are quite compelling. If Burns joins Atlanta, projections suggest the Falcons could see a jump in their total sacks from 35 to around 57, an increase of over 60%. That would make them one of the top pass-rushing teams in the league. Their pressure percentage would skyrocket, and their overall defensive efficiency, measured by PFF grades, could climb from around 86.5 to over 92. The big plays allowed per game would drop, and the defense would become even more disruptive. Not only that, but Burns' presence could help the Falcons tighten up their coverage, reducing completions against from 59% to around 55%, and cutting down yards allowed per game from 320 to roughly 280. All these improvements could significantly influence the Falcons' chances in the postseason. Bookmakers are already starting to notice, with Super Bowl odds moving from plus 5,000 to around plus 3,000, reflecting a growing belief that Atlanta could be a serious contender if they make this move. The X factor is playoff performance. Burns' ability to generate pressure in clutch moments could give Atlanta a real shot at making a deep run, perhaps even challenging for the NFC title. The metrics show that with Burns, the Falcons would have a plus 0.38 EPA per clutch play advantage, which is huge in playoff scenarios where every play counts. So what about the Giants? Why would they agree to part ways with Burns? Well, despite his talent, the Giants face cap issues and a need to rebuild their roster. Losing Burns would hurt their pass rush. Sacks could decline by as much as 25%, from around 35 down to 26, which is a significant drop. That's not ideal for a team trying to stay competitive, especially when they're focusing on rebuilding their defensive line. The Giants are also mindful of the long term, and moving Burns could free up cap space to acquire younger players, especially at wide receiver and in the secondary. For Atlanta, this move isn't just about boosting their pass rush, it's about making a bold statement. It's about showing the league that the Falcons are ready to take that next step and become a true powerhouse. Burns, with his speed and relentless pursuit, could turn Atlanta into a rushing juggernaut, with projections indicating they could reach close to 57 sacks, up from their current total. This would elevate their defense from being decent to elite, and with the right complementary pieces, they could be unstoppable. Looking ahead, the odds of Atlanta making a splash in the playoffs would increase dramatically. DraftKings has already started to adjust their Super Bowl odds for the Falcons, and if this trade happens, it's not out of the realm of possibility to see them at plus 3,000 or better. That's a serious jump, and it signals that the league is starting to recognize Atlanta's potential. The Falcons have been building steadily, and with a move like this, they could be setting themselves up for a historic run. The division would be shaken, rivalries would intensify, and for the fans, it would be a roller coaster that could last all the way through February. And now, Atlanta Falcons fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Do you think Burns would be the perfect piece to finally unlock your team's full potential? Would this move propel the Falcons into Super Bowl conversations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Falcons. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Atlanta Falcons news. This offseason is shaping up to be one of the most exciting in recent memory, and you're right in the middle of it with us. Let's keep the passion alive, and who knows? Maybe soon enough, we'll be celebrating another Falcons Super Bowl appearance, all thanks to bold moves and a little bit of NFL magic.